For those who don't know, I actually walked from Kolkata to Delhi every step of the way. After which I did Kolkata Dhaka, done a exploratory walk with colleges of architecture. They don't know who a Vastukar is. Who designs? Design aata hai engineer se, basically say. So we as architects don't talk to even our construction workers who don't know us. Where is the question of the community at large knowing us? Good afternoon, everybody. It's a small, intimate crowd, so I'm going to try and keep the presentation also kind of casual as far as possible. And yeah, looking at me with this sling and the way I am, I guess you can't really believe that I did what I did. But sometimes I also wonder when I wake up and have to pinch myself and say, did I really do that? You know, did at least the first walk, which was the big one. But yes, that's a journey that kind of made me what I am today. And I'm going to take you through some of the stories, nuggets, and also come to our 6 action areas that I work with under Ethos Foundation, why they came about, and maybe give you some insights into how maybe some of those things can be integrated into your practices. My practice is very different. This is what I do, but many of you are in the realm of the design and build practice. And I think the day when we actually mainstream what I'm talking about is when I think we'll all be a happier society, and that's the objective of what we do through Ethos Foundation. So just in a glimpse, these are the first 4 walks, the first one being the mega walk, which was 1700 kilometers long, that I undertook between Kolkata and Delhi. It was 2,572,420 steps across 7 states, 849 villages, towns and cities, over 70 days. I'm not sure if everybody knows, it was actually a walk that I actually went on foot. For those who don't know, I actually walked from Kolkata to Delhi every step of the way. After which I did Kolkata Dhaka. I have done a exploratory walk with colleges of architecture, where of course the colleges students didn't walk the entire distance, but they explored while I walked in Odisha. And then the Chennai-Bangalore walk, which was more recent in 2024, that focused on universal design. This is just a little montage of me crossing the border in, across to Bangladesh. It was a walk that was supported by the Bangladesh embassy as well. And hence, I mean, today one can't dream of going across there with all the things that are happening, but I was lucky to be where I was at the point in time. And I managed to get this flag of Bangladesh from the Bangladesh embassy, which I carried with me. And the architect from the Institute of Architects, Bangladesh, received me across the border, and it was quite a momentous occasion. There have been many walks since. Last year was Gujarat, Uttarakhand, Kerala and Goa. I've now decided to do 100 kilometers in every state. I've done 14 states so far. I'm just going to show you a few visuals, images, videos of what I went through along the way, the kind of receptions I got. Bhaiya, audio dekh lena. Thoda volume bada. So this was at a Adivasi village. It was on the 5th day of my walk, 6th day actually, on the 18th of February. I started on the 13th of February. This is on the outskirts of Bishnupur. Many of you know, we study about the terracotta temples in Bishnupur, but don't really talk about the places where people live there. And this is one of the villages that I went to there. And this is a community of 22 families that really play these drums and dance for a living. And I was completely overwhelmed that they chose to welcome me in this manner, because when I set off on the walk, I never had any expectations. I just thought I'm going to walk. But these kind of interactions were something that I never imagined would happen. These drums were actually rented by these guys for the occasion. So a year later went back. I went and actually bought a pair of drums for them and gifted it to them, so they wouldn't need to borrow them anymore. But I think what I'd like to point out to you is the building behind. These are Adivasi families, and one of the houses I saw of Surbala here was very beautiful in mud, and with the toilet and the kitchen separate from the house, which is typically how homes in that region were built. And there was also a snake wandering about, and it was like a little pet cat in the house. And we were all jumping around saying, "Oh boy, there's a snake!" And for them, it was nothing much. It was just one of the one of the family of sorts. But this is what's beginning to happen there. This is a new structure that's coming up. That's where we had our meeting. And many of the homes that are being built afresh are being built in this manner, and it's something that we all need to worry about. A few more experiences that I'd like to share. So this is the first image is of a NGO that trains nurses, and these girls that you see singing here are likely to become nurses in the next, when I was there, at least in the next 2 weeks, they were to graduate. And when we started talking to them, I understood that they'd never been to a big hospital. All that they had seen was a primary healthcare center in their village. And it struck me so hard about the huge shock in terms of culture, in terms of scale that they were to have if they suddenly landed up in a city, in a hospital. And I even spoke to the locals there about, to the NGO there about integrating a small 3D walkthrough or a session by an architect for them to be introduced on what a hospital is like really. And I think this is where I've also been talking to other disciplines to see where that overlap needs to happen in terms of integration. When you talk about autism, do we understand a field like that? Do we need to understand it better through the lens of psychologists for us to be able to design these spaces better? What is the kind of overlap that needs to happen? The second dance that you saw, I can't dance to save my life, but these girls made me dance. And this is at a village on the outskirts of Ranchi. These are children of around tribals, and many of them, their parents work in brick kilns, and again, that's so close home. So every decision we take in terms of the material that we want to use kind of affects somebody's life out there. There's an NGO that's taking care of 240 children. Now, of course, that's just besides his attire that vibes with mine. He was also a nomad, traveling between forts and places, and I was also sleeping in a different bed. So there was a kind of a vibe between us. Just a few images of what our country actually has to offer in terms of landscape, in terms of the kind of food. In fact, this is moody and ghugni that I ate with the Adivasi women, Adivasi village in the outskirts of Bishnupur. I don't know if any of you know, this is a dish called dhushka that I was introduced to in Jharkhand. So even understanding what our different cuisine is, I never thought, being a vegetarian, that I would get vegetarian food easily in Bangladesh. And every place that I went to, they would just come and ask me what vegetables, and I would just say cauliflower, tomato, sab kuch khati hu, pumpkin, palak, and you will see everything being served at every meal, because they just wanted to be such good hosts. There is a saying that Bangladeshis, at least in the rural areas, Faridpur and certain places, can actually kill you with their hospitality, and it was pretty much true, because they would just feed and feed and feed. This is actually at a maths teacher's house. He was a maths school teacher, and they all turned vegetarian because of me for that day. So I'm here to talk to you about the Design Responsibility Compass, and these are our 6 action areas that came about, and I'm trying to align the compass to these 6 action areas as I take you through this presentation. And I'll quickly, it's a small crowd, so I'll quickly, maybe just by a show of hands, ask you, if you have in 5 seconds, you were to say which space you like better. If you were to put your hands up for this one, how many of you would say this is something that you prefer over B? Is there anybody here who would say 2 or 3 of you or 4 of you? And the rest of you feel probably the other one, right? So again, if I was to ask you, if you were to design this for your neighbor, for whoever is sitting next to you, or not design it, but choose it for your neighbor, how would you do it? Would you be able to say, I like this for Sangeet, or I like this for XYZ? It's a hard thing to do, right? So I think questions when we design is, how do you choose for someone else? Based on what criteria should you arrive at that decision? Because very often you're designing for the unknown. And how do you decide how do you put yourself in that person's shoes? Do we prefer what works for us? Do we design believing what works for us? Do we think about how they move? What if they have disabilities? What if you don't even know what kind of a spectrum? So if you actually design, very often we also do these surveys to understand what the most popular color is or popular people, space requirement is. But the least common denominator is what you have to design for. Even if 20% of the people are uncomfortable in your space, I think they are the people who should determine what your design needs to be. And how do you do that really? Design decisions are not instinctive choices. They need to be collective responsibilities. And that's something that I'd like to dwell on. Everything that we do is really affected by a single design decision that you make. Your environment can be affected, public, and it can be a simple thing. It can just be the choice that you make on a material, but it still affects the economy. It affects so many things that we have that power to change. And I often talk today that we are allowing ourselves and our choices and our trends to be dictated by the market. How can we dictate those trends? How can we decide what those trends need to be? And I think that will happen when we start amplifying the alternate narrative. And that's something that I'm also here to present. So yes, the design decisions shape everyday lives. The design responsibility compass brings intention to these choices. And if we could, I know it's hard to have complete alignment on every project, but if we manage to align even 2 of these things or a few of each of these things, we would probably be doing justice. So I'm going to begin with each of these action areas. Audio चाहिए भैया हर एक चीज में, हाँ? आप लोग बारिश के बनाते बारिश की बात अच्छा कौन बनाते इंजीनियर नहीं आर्किटेक्ट बनाता है वही हम बता रहे हैं. So we are here as a bunch of, probably most of us are architects here, and this is the reality. This is how irrelevant we are to the community at large. And we often cry hoarse. We show these WhatsApp messages, Facebook, Insta. Okay, there's a court case. The engineer is using the name of the architect. But who is to blame? I think at the end of it, we are to blame because we aren't doing enough to be seen out there. There are so many cases where I've asked a construction worker. Yesterday, I was at a workshop we ran at Anant University for construction workers, and day before yesterday, we ran it at Ipsaraj Court. I asked the construction worker, वास्तुकार के पहचान को पहचानते हो? So many blanks. They don't know who a vastukar is. Who designs? Design आता है engineer से, मिस्त्री से. So we as architects don't talk to even our construction workers who don't know us. Where is the question of the community at large knowing us? So that brings me to our action area. Suades is what I call it. I am at a stage in life where there are sleepless nights that I have for body reasons. And those sleepless nights are when I think of these names. So Suades is see value in design, and that's where it comes from. And we've been going to, this is during my walks where I visited different schools, primary, secondary, senior, taking presentations, not necessarily as career opportunities, but just as awareness on what is design. Because जब भी पूछा जाता है तो they say painting, coloring, yeah, that's what they think design is. And design is actually, how do you tell them that you can solve problems with design? How do you make them aware of it? So, audio, huh? मुझे अच्छा लगता है ये पृथ्वी के बारे में, खेत जमीन, ये पहाड़ और नदियाँ, पानी, हर एक चीज़ के बारे में जानना मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता है. या फिर आप देखिए तो अंतरिक्ष में भी ग्रहों के बारे में पढ़ाया जाता है. इस जगह अब जाएं तो बहुत से होता है, बहुत से खनिज के बारे में पढ़ाया जाता है. मुझे जानना बहुत अच्छा लगता है. Isn't that simply amazing? She's Sumari, originally named Somvari because she was born on a Monday, chose to change her name because she didn't like it, from the Oraon tribes in near Ranchi. And she's telling you why she wants to study geography with such a sparkle and aligning so beautifully with the subject of geography. And how many of us study architecture because we want to make a difference? We understand color, we understand light, we understand orientation, we follow the path of the sun. Are we able to articulate something like that? Can we at this point in time at least go back and see what we do and articulate it in that manner and feel that love and passion for it? And maybe get one other person to feel that love and passion for it as we go along. So yes, I think in Jharkhand, just like we say namaste and khammagani and things like that, they say johar. Johar means I submit to nature. And what better way, if you see somebody speaking, it's very clear that where that attachment to nature comes from. We have created some content which we translated into Hindi and Bengali so far, which is available on what this whole world of architecture is, universe of architecture is. We have three characters. It's like a comic book. We have three characters. They're traveling between time, and one is from the future, one is from the past, one is from the present, and they come together and they're traveling over time and exploring, architecture to understand it better. And that's something that we have translated into these two languages. We're hoping to be able to translate it to many other languages as well. We are also doing things like this.
आपके भी बेसिन से पानी हमेशा बाहर आता है? क्या आपके भी बाथरूम में हमेशा कसरत रहती है? क्या आप भी यूं ही बाथरूम में टकराते रहते हैं? क्या आपके भी पड़ोसी आपकी खिड़की के अंदर झांकते हैं? यूं है अनजान जिंदगी।
I'll pause this because I think the Jankar part you probably know well. But these kind of videos are being made for common people because 80 to 90% of our buildings are not formally designed by us. It's common people who are designing them. So at least when they are designing them, or when they're, unfortunately, many architects also design like this. So at least the client can demand and say, correct you, or say that it needs to be done differently, is something that we propose to do through these campaigns. So there are things like this that we are doing. We're running a design literacy catalyst program just now. If any of you are interested in joining, please get in touch with us. We're reaching out to 100 schools. We're giving you a presentation, and we're paying you for your expenses also in some way. And we're asking you to go to schools, 5 schools per person, go and speak about architecture and design. And you're free to amend the presentation that we give you. You're free to make it your own and take it forward. So right now, these are some images of sessions that are happening in Pune, and Tanvi went to some government schools in Bikaner in Rajasthan. It's happening in Delhi, Nashik, Coimbatore, Ooty, various places. And the reason, very easy for us to say, okay, we'll hire a bunch of volunteers from somewhere and we'll send them out. But we're trying to do it through architecture students, because I think the objective, while is the end result of getting the students of schools getting aware, it's also for the process where we ourselves as a community kind of come together to make that change happen. You're going to see this QR code on many of my slides. Here I'm also highlighting people who are doing it elsewhere. There are projects that are being done in these particular lines, not by my organization, but by others. And I think it's important to create that repository and resource. So that QR code is really to ask all of you to, in case you know of an organization that's working in any alternate space, which is doing things differently, we'd like to amplify their efforts. We want to add them to our repository, because I think this is the alternate narrative that we'd like to create as Ethos. So this is Urbs Mumbai. Many of you may know of Urbs Mumbai, which is doing things like the Kolivada Charcha, where they're talking about with local communities to explore space, material, urban practices, just as a way of communication and conversation. How can buildings be sites of learning? And I think it's possible for every building to do that. Every building can be a product or a project for Suades as well, meaning it can be something that they can learn from. To tell you, I was invited to, this is way back in, I think 2009 or so, to be a judge at a toilet beauty contest in a village in Nagapattinam. And it's funny to hear toilet beauty contest, but it was basically to judge how those toilets were it was eco-san, to see how they were being used, how they were being kept, and how they were also giving messages to people about sanitation and hygiene and cleanliness. And because of that competition, the village started using those toilets 100%. There were no people who were, they say room bana dete hain, and they don't really use the toilet that's built for them. They actually started using them because of that. So how can a building or a project or a space be that mode of learning for the community at large? And this is something that we documented. as one of those that does it. Coming to the next action area, we had Abha talking, about conservation in the morning. I have a slightly different take to it. Very often when we talk of any place, we talk about, if I was to ask you, if you were to go to Tanjavur, you would probably say Brihadishwara temple. If you were to go to Ellora, you would probably say Kailashnath. For me, those monuments, while they are absolutely beautiful and examples of fantastic engineering and design, I think they also, in a sense, they are not equitable in their telling of history. Those buildings were often not accessible to most of the community. They were probably telling history only from the lens of the privileged or the affluent, and did not really take into account maybe even the people who built it. I mean, I've been to so many of these places and I ask the guide, तुम तो इतना बता रहे हो इसके बारे में, लेकिन इनको जिसने बनाया उनके घरों के बारे में बताइए. नहीं, उनके घर तो कब के टूट गए, and there is no story. And I think that's where the strength of understanding what how they built is important, because that's what you can apply to day-to-day construction. How this was built is something that you may not even be able to apply to our buildings of today. So for me, these are the monuments that I'd like to look at and talk about and document. Because if you document it, even in Odisha, this person told me that, the guide at Konarak temple told me that, the homes of all those common people are gone. And every year there is a cyclone and it gets blown away. Isn't that amazing? If you were to document every year how they rebuilt, you actually get a complete picture of how materials evolved, how people's lives evolved and so on. And we don't have any of that. So can we start doing that now? And for me, I call them invisible monuments, and this comes under our action area Bodh, which is building on design histories. And we're trying to again create a repository not just of building wisdom, but also craft, little elements. There was this, I don't know if I have that video here, but there was this these brothers from a village called Bharra in Madhya Pradesh who desperately waved out to me from across the road, and I was exhausted, but they said, you have to come and sit with us. And they told me about their house, which had been handcrafted pretty much from scratch way back 50 years ago when I was walking. Now it'll be 55 years ago. And they talked about a rice crop extract, which actually works as anti-termite treatment. And I have gone and scoured the internet, checked out everything. I haven't found that information. So it is in Jagjivan was his name. Jagjivan ke dimag mein hai aur Jagjivan ke saath chala jayega. That's the sadness of it. So how do you start documenting these things? This is just a cross-section of Calcutta to Delhi, the walk of all the vernacular structures, and those are not so vernacular structures, although they are vernacular because they are in that location and they have been built by the locals, but at least not indigenous methods of construction. And here you can kind of make out where this is Madhya Pradesh, this is Uttar Pradesh, bol paoge aap thoda bahut, but there's absolutely no scope. It can even be Timbuktu. So again, some more images of the traditional wisdom and things like that. We are doing, as we speak, there is an ARCOS social internship program that's running. We're encouraging colleges to look out of the box and allow for unconventional internships, hoping that a few years down the line they actually become conventional. Jitendra has been shortlisted to go and work with Tiny Farm Labs. I think some of you know of Tiny Farm Labs similarly. So it's a internship program where he's going and exploring local methods of construction. We have people who've been chosen, and we are funding that. So as an NGO, as a trust, I've managed to get not just funds, but also the leeway to do what I want with those funds. So I can actually craft this whole journey the way I want to. And the partners have been super nice about it. Rainmatter Foundation is the partner. So we have Jitendra, we have someone going to Spark. I think you know of Sheila Patel at Spark. We have somebody going to Karigar Shala and working, somebody going to Social Design Collaborative with Swati Janu. So 6 such internships have been crafted, and we're going to do more of those. In fact, I think if any of you know of, it doesn't even have to be a student, it can be a young architect who's willing to kind of compromise on the monthly stipend that they'll get, because I have budgeted for an intern stipend. So we're going to announce something with WRI as well very soon. So if anybody wants to go and apply for something like this, that's also possible. Again, one of those that is an external project. There are many, I think, and that is why I've put some of them out, and with that QR code, hoping that some of you will help us add to our repository. So practice rooted in traditional building knowledge. I know of so many that are doing work, but we don't get to hear of them. It's the normal narrative or the curated narrative that gets kind of pushed or amplified. So we need to see more about all this. Now, on the 16th day of my walk, I met Gopika Anand, who incidentally lost her lower limbs and is bound to a wheelchair in an accident. And she did win Miss Wheelchair India. And my question to her was, why Miss Wheelchair India? Why not Miss India? Why does there have to be a Miss Wheelchair India? And but it gave her a great shot in the arm, and she's now a great advocate. She's part of the committee that's actually looking at polling stations being accessible and so on. But my story on why UDITA happened for us in Ethos, where universal design became our action area, is thanks to Harshvardhan. During my walk, there were some curated initiatives and some spontaneous. This one was curated because Gopika was spontaneous, but I wanted to also explore this world of disability in the remote areas. And in Datia, where I reached, so I was supposed to meet Harshvardhan Dubey. I reached his house in Datia, and there was a young man who received me, climbed up the steps, opened a door, switched on the lights, put out a gadda, took out his harmonium and said, "Hum aapke liye rag Pitambari gaane wale." And I said, "Bhaiya, main 28 kilometer chal ke aayi, I have not even managed to do my stretches. Main Harshvardhan Dubey se milna chahti hu." He said, "Main hi Harshvardhan Dubey hu. I can't see. I am blind." And I said, "You didn't look blind at all. You were running up and doing all this." And he said, "That's because inside my house, I'm king. The minute I go out, society's made it impossible for me to move around." And that's Harshvardhan for you. So I'll move on because I've pretty much told you what this was about for paucity of time. So that's how UDITA came about, which focuses on an inclusive society. And my fourth walk from Chennai to Bangalore focused on that. Emphasis was a CSR partner who supported this walk. And I had some very beautiful NGO partners. We had a whole range of NGOs that came under this. You see Poonam Natarajan there, who runs the first Plastic Society in India was started in Chennai, but all of them took on different names. Many of them took on different names, and hers became Vidya Sagar. And this was something this is where I flagged off from. I'll come to that. So recently when I was, there was a podcast of mine where I was interviewed by Nipun Chawla, I think his name is. He's the head of a NGO that works on autism in Delhi. And because that podcast kind of was seen by the organizers of the Global Autism Conference, which was actually by St. John's, complete medical conference, they caught hold of me and said, "As an architect, we'd like you to come and talk about spaces for autism." And so I said, "Look, let's find out what I can talk about," because I stopped in my tracks and I said, I can understand mobility, I can understand vision, I can understand hearing, but what about something like autism, which is so invisible? How do I, even address that? And we asked questions to just about 20, 30 architects at random. And things like, how many disabilities are there as per the act? Do you know there is an act? Do you know which act it is? Does universal design apply to digital spaces as well, like websites and kiosks? So many questions like that. And the response was fairly abysmal. You'll see the reds kind of dominating. Unfortunately, it's none of our faults. It's not mandatory for us to learn universal design in college. Neither is it mandatory for medical students to understand universal design. So where do people go who need that thing? And when we asked them, do you know enough about universal design inclusivity after this survey? I mean, it was slightly better maybe because they at least said, oh, there is something like this, let me go and look it up. So at least it got better, but it was pretty bad. I asked them to name one architect that they know who's an expert in designing autism-friendly spaces. Zero. Not one of them knew anybody. So when I went to the conference, I stood there, I said, I'm standing in shame, saying that this is the reality of the situation, but I'm hoping that my journey and the journey of us architects working on issues like this begins today. And that's something I can vouch for and hope that we'll do together. And that's something that I'd like to call all of you to also be part of. I'm not sure how many of you have been to Chennai Marina Beach. So this is a unique, you have? Yeah. So this is a unique, this is recent, so you may have missed it. Also, you go to the beach for various reasons, not necessarily to see something like this. But this is a bridge that has been, it's called the Empowerment Corridor, that has been designed to ensure equality of access to the beach, to the water. So someone on a wheelchair can actually go right up to the water. There is a ramp that goes down. Of course, they'll need some support there maybe. And they come down and they can feel the water. This girl's mother is the happiest because this child, for her, it's therapy to be there, you know. And this is one of the kinds in India. Basantnagar Beach also has one more now. So Chennai is catching up. And it's one of the few beaches that have, in the world, that have a railing. So the boy in red that you see there, who's actually visually impaired, can walk without assistance right up to the water. So this was on the day of my flag off when we started. And all these things were revelations for me. While, you know, today I'm talking about accessibility to an extent, I think there's so much unclear. We were wanting to do a toilet that was in Chennai in a government school that I said should be a role model toilet for accessible toilets. And when we started looking for a WC, which needs to be 750 mm, you know, it needs to be a long body WC for wheelchair accessibility. Of the bathroom are meant for one side disability. That means the other side cannot, it's not fully accessible. So you may have to have two bathrooms on the same floor, one which is right, one which is left for it to work. I have injured my hand now, and say this was my right hand that was injured, or I'd say I'm a left-handed person. How do I operate the flush tank? You know, very often it's on the right side. Left-handers always have it bad. Can we just have a simple system where both of them, all flush tanks have two, or they are the old rope kind system where it becomes easy for us to use? So we're also planning to have some of these conversations, round tables, where we can actually take it to the manufacturers. So the Goa walk that I did recently was with the Purple Fest and the government of Goa in a sense. And it kind of opened up another thing for me, that if 80% of our buildings are not designed by architects, while yes, architects need to be made aware, but I think architects now, because there are rules, these big buildings that have to have certain things, you're bound to do it, it's going to happen. Railway stations, airports and things like that. But most of the corner shop, the medical store, the small nursing home, hospital, small restaurant, how do you keep them aware? So I think we need to start small. We're looking at working with the government, the Department of Welfare for Persons with Disabilities in Goa, to come up with some zines that we can take to schools as a learning material, so we start getting them to be aware then itself. We've tied up with various colleges of architecture who are ARCOS clubs, and we are asking them to do simulation exercises to understand this better. We have a course, which is an open course on a basic understanding of universal design. We'd be happy. I mean, of course, like I said, in the last 2 years since this course is ready, my learning and my understanding have undergone such a change. So this also needs to be supplemented with various additional modules. I'd like to just take you through that. When I flagged off this walk, I pledged that I'll learn sign language by the end of the year 2024. And I actually took a course and I learned sign language. And my husband and I both did it. And this is in Gujarat, during my Gujarat walk. I don't know Gujarati. We were at a particular site. I found these 6 or 7 people, 2 of them having hearing and speech disability, and I could beautifully communicate with them, but I couldn't communicate with any of the others, and none of the others could understand what I was saying or what they were saying. So it's so beautiful to, what is a barrier at the end of the day? if I was in Gujarat and I have to speak to a Gujarati, I will learn Gujarati. So sign language is just that. And if we can learn, I think we'll kind of equate it to one of the other languages. And I think this is something that really gave me great joy. So this is the course that I was telling you about. We call it Beyond Ramps and Railings because eventually we end up saying ramps and railings are the only thing we talk about when we're talking about disability. Ke haan, ramp de diya, it's ticked off and our building is fine, but there's so much more that we need to do. We recently ran, with the Boston Architectural College, we ran an online, rather social media contest on making playgrounds accessible. And very, very heartening. We had about 50 entries and very nice work by colleges. The second prompt is on traditional wisdom. We're going to run it as one prompt every month or so for 6 months and giving out certain credits from Boston Architectural College. But the entry that we got, Gita Krishnamurthy, who's built, she's from Kilkili Foundation, and she's done some few parks in Chennai that are accessible and universal design friendly. And both she and I actually chose this as the winning entry. It's just a platform. So it's so inclusive and so, it's kind of unifying, level playing ground that there is no equipment that makes one person superior or the other. The only thing that needs to be done is you access that platform. And it goes back to the old playing systems where you sit on the floor, you put out your carom board or whatever it is, or if you need a chabutra, then you have it at a slightly higher level and play. And of course, there were other entries also that made it. The last one, incidentally, was for children with visual disabilities, and this is for a wheelchair swing that we came over. Now, they may not be perfect, but at least kids have thought about it, and that was nice. Again, through the social internship program, there's one youngster who's going to Inclusive Divyangjan Entrepreneur Association, which is being run by Mr. Mallikarjun. And on 6th of February, if any of you are in Delhi, we are 26th of February. We are running a experience day of sorts, where we are asking you to choose from 10 experiences that you would like to have. And we are actually facilitating certain interactions in these 6 action areas in Delhi. We plan to do it in other cities as well, but right now this has been planned in Delhi. I don't know how many of you know of the Museum of Art and Photography. This is where I ended my walk. It's one of the places that I would say is fairly accessible. I still will say it's not completely accessible, but there's a lot of thought that's given. For instance, the front row does not exist in their auditorium. You come and park your wheelchairs, or you can put out seats. So simple things like that. There is no platform that's so high. It's almost at ground level, and you have a ramp that comes up. Very interestingly, in Bangalore, I also went to a play called Reunion, which was on disability by, all the artists were persons with disabilities, and they're willing to come and do it in different places. So you can Google them and see if you'd like to invite them somewhere. This is another organization that's working. So I'm just showing you that there is work happening in this space by different people. And if you know more, please add to it and we'll be happy. Coming to the next action area, I'm going to try and run as quick as I can because I think we're coming to, I'm sure I'll get a white slip soon. So this is the day 1 of my walk. As I was flagging off, I needed 2 construction workers to flag me off. I thought they would be my VIPs. I didn't want to bring anybody else. I asked my architect friends to try and connect me, and none of them could connect me to a construction worker. And that broke my heart because that means they don't talk to their construction workers. On day 1 of my walk, as I finished, I met this guy, this person, Bhola, at Dankuni, and he was doing earthfill work. And I asked him, what is being built here? हम तो मिट्टी डाल रहे हैं बस, so most workers don't even know what they are building very often. They're either building a wall, they're building a roof and making a door, but they don't know what they're doing it for. A proposition, would you be willing to make a presentation to your construction workers before you start a project? So they know what you're doing, they feel involved in it, they feel engaged in it, and they feel good about it. My house is getting, I'm getting a facelift and the interior is done for my house. I've asked them to keep a roster of every person who's worked on my house, so I can say a silent thank you to them, if nothing else. So we are under Shama. Shama is our action area for construction workers. Just now I told you we did 2 workshops on financial literacy for construction workers. So we did it at IPSA Rajkot and Anant. Why do I do it at a college? So that students get involved, get engaged, they are planning it. The children they did a little play for them, and they actually ran a little creche for the children of the construction workers. So it was very beautiful how the whole thing came together. I don't have pictures from yesterday and day before yesterday, but we ran a survey of construction workers. We have a whole bunch of information on their lives now, all done by students of architecture. Under Project Dignity, we're taking videos of construction workers teaching us building construction. And we've made so far 37 modules of them, 37 videos, making another 40 this year. So there'll be 77 modules, and that will finish our project, and trying to make it accessible to colleges for them to use. This is Project Empowerment, pictures of the different workshops we've done with construction workers. So we have Sridevi Changali and Rosie Paul. I don't know, I saw their work put up here, Masons Inc. They secured a grant from us to work with women construction workers. They were already doing some fantastic work, but to amplify that through an exhibition and so on. So we're really happy that it's come together very well. And I think Sridevi is going to be soon speaking on our platform as well. Ahmedabad, Surya Kakani, I think many of you know the work that he does, again with training construction workers on various skills, and also working on their well-being. Building knowledge, building agency is essential. So these are just some examples that we have of different projects. Access to design, I think, is something that I'd like to quickly talk about. So there was this lady on, many people ask me what I did when I needed to go to the loo on the walk. So I did what most people do on the highway, that if you didn't have a place, you used the jhadis, maybe an abandoned structure or whatever, but also people's homes. So there was in Umri in Madhya Pradesh, I used the home of a lady called Rajwa. And when I came out, there were about 50 women standing around, and they said that ab aapko fees dena padega, aapne toilet use kiya to fees bharna padega. And they took me to the house that was being constructed and asked for advice. So it's not as if they are not looking for advice. It's just that they don't have anybody to ask for advice. So architecture has become very like a luxury now. It's only affordable by a section of people. How do you make it accessible to everybody? This is in Majholi that I came across this particular Lifeline Express. It's been running from 1991, where doctors go around the village and do operations for patients that need it. The OPDs run in the village, and the railway station takes on a very cute appearance. Is decked up, and there's a sense of festivities around there and so on. And I don't think we need to go anywhere. We can very well go around our own campus, maybe colleges. We can go to the staff that are not architects, designers, but go and talk to them and see if they need support and help them. There's so many things we can do. I think I've also been telling colleges, if they can start bringing in parents of students to come in as jury as well. It'll be interesting to see how you reach out to the non-architects. But this was a project we did in Chennai. This is where I told you about the toilet, the universal design toilet. But sent students of 4 colleges to go and do a need assessment in the school. It's a government school. And they got responses like, how do you tackle snakes? How do you tackle cows? And those are things we never plan for when you're sitting in an architectural office or in a studio. And this was a real life situation that they had to tackle, and come back. And then we had 2 architectural firms, Biju Kuriakose and Nataraj Venkat Nirupma Suresh, running a workshop for those students who sat and then worked on the designs, and we came up with something that was implemented. Just some examples again of people who are doing fantastic work on making design accessible. We have Swati Janu in Delhi, and she's also going to be running she's currently running an internship with this young man working with her from our side. Moving on to the next action area, and I think this should be the last.
हम महिलाओं का ये है, हमारा महिला का शौचालय है। हम महिला बाहर जाते हैं, हमें दिक्कत होता है, हमें 4 बजे रात में जाना पड़ता है, 5 बजे भोर में जाना पड़ता है।
So this is Sunita Devi, and she's a woman mason that I met in Latehar. And she took to masonry because of the need for toilets. She learned how to build a toilet as her first need because of the absence of toilets. She's trained over 1,600 women masons and has built over 100 toilets in her village.
Are highways not meant for people? One of the biggest challenges I faced on my walk from Kolkata to Delhi was the absence of trees and places of shade along the highways I walked across. In India, our highways are not only used by cars and trucks, but also by a large number of pedestrians whose journeys on foot go unnoticed through the windows of our high-speed vehicles. As I shared
I'll just stop here. And that brings me to our last action area. I think it is this sustainability in action and thought, where we are working on, we again had a endowment from Emphasis, where we ran a mentorship program for young architects, where senior architects kind of mentored them, or senior, not necessarily architect, like someone wanted information on permaculture. So we got a permaculture expert to spend time with this firm to help them figure out their, their problem. We had people like Mona Pingel working with a young firm in Bangalore. So we had that kind of mentorship that happened. In addition to clear discussions on water, we also gave out 5 grants for ideas to save water. So there were people who came up with rainwater harvesting. We had a very interesting young team from Vauxhall University interior design, fashion design team that came up with fabric made out of lemon peel and agar-agar. And they actually came out and we said, make a roll that can be used for these shadis, where you put these papers on the table and people eat. If you do that, then even if an animal eats it, there is no problem because it's made out of So yes, so we have other examples. Kalpana Ramesh is doing some fantastic work, and she's taken on one intern from us also, by the way, in Hyderabad, who's looking at the step wells of Hyderabad. Building with Nature, Chitra, of course, we all know the, various things that are happening through her organization and office. WRI, Swastika. I'm just showing you examples. I know there is so much in this space already that's happening, but we really need to make that narrative, alternate narrative, and talk more. So I think I'd like to dwell a little bit on the power of coming together. I was telling the students from NASA today as well, that each of us wants to do and, repeat sometimes what we're already doing. How can we come together and say, okay, you're doing this, let me do this, and let's together amplify what we're doing so we make a bigger impact. So we've got 60 clubs onboarded with us. 60 colleges have social responsibility clubs, and we are continuously engaging with them, giving them things to learn, to study, examine. Maybe if they have a project, we're trying to fund it, and so much that's happening with them, including PSG, which Sangeet Bhai is part of. Did mention the book 1770. It's a documentation of what I experienced, some of what I have told you today. But I think I'd also like to dwell on how something that started as a walk has now reached somewhere else. There are so many pathways that have opened up, and this practice has moved on from being just that act of walking to so much doing that's happening. And I'd like to just talk to you about how it's important for these action areas to align for a project to be completely, wholly responsible. And I'd like to leave you with that thought, because it's, after all, our cause and our responsibility. Thank you. I hope I didn't take too much longer than, yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. We now open the floor to questions from the audience. If you have any, please feel free to raise your hands.
Lights on, better. Lights.
What were you thinking? What were you thinking when you were about 25? You had energy, you had time, but you didn't know what to do. So was that a chronic experience? Throughout time you learned that this is your calling, this is what you want to do.
When I was way back your age is what you're talking about? Yeah. So I think that's a very important question, because I was lost, for sure. I did try working with an architectural firm for a very short while, but I realized that's not exactly my calling. I was very uncomfortable. I took a course on stabilized mud blocks, alternate methods of construction. Professor Jagdish was my mentor at that point. And then I responded to an advertisement for a creative educationist in slums. I said, if I'm not able to do what I want here, let me do what I want. And when I made that call to Anita Reddy, who's my friend, philosopher, guide, mentor, whatever, very, very dear friend of mine, she needed an architect. She said, Arey Gita, why are you talking about creative educations? We need architects because we're doing shelter projects. So the door opened up. It was like I was at the right place at the right time a lot of the time. But I think the reason Ethos happened, and I thought, the Ethos happened with just the first quiz. But when I saw the enthusiasm, I started getting, there were no messages, and I had a cell phone, but nobody else would have had, students wouldn't have had a cell phone. But whenever I was at a college, people coming and walking up, if I opened those days Facebook, if I opened Facebook, there'll be 5 people chatting with me saying, what do I do after this, after that? I realized there's so much that I can do through Ethos. And if I can help people make those choices by, consciously rather than by chance, like in my case, it just happened. And so hence Ethos happened. But yes, I was as confused, and that's the beauty of it, right? You craft your journey.
It takes some courage and some lifelong determination to do what you're doing, Gita. And something which we look up to you, because we all want to do something for our own self, but you're doing for the society, and I think it's commendable. We are absolutely proud of you, and thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
Giving your life and time and space for the society. Great, yeah. We just wish that we can do something which you're doing, emulate you, but we cannot.
Thank you. I just like to say that I'm also being selfish. I'm doing this because this gives me great joy.
Yeah.
So,
That's okay.
for sure, yeah. So just feel free to get back in touch on Insta. Like I said, all hands on board. You want to do a small project somewhere, you want some advice somewhere. Not that I can give advice to everybody on everything, but I can connect you with people maybe. Yeah, that's largely it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Following this